Everyone, and welcome to Automating EHS at Scale, featuring PJ Hegarty. I'm Hannah, Digital Marketing and Events Specialist here at FlowForma, and I'll be your host for today's event. So before we get started, we just have some housekeeping. So this webinar is being recorded, and if you need any assistance, you can email info@flowforma.com. Your lines are muted, but we want to make this as interactive as possible. So you're able to pop questions in the questions box or the chat either. And we'll have polls throughout so you can vote in those and a survey at the end. So yeah, so we're going to have a quick look at our agenda for today's webinar. We'll have a look at FlowForma, our product, just to tell the backstory and why we're here. And of course, our interview with our FlowForma customer, PJ Hegarty. We'll also be looking at beyond health and safety and scaling process automation. Looking at a few customer ROI stats, and then we'll finish off with a live Q&A. So you can pop your questions in throughout the webinar or leave them to the end for Niamh and Sinead. So let's meet our speakers. Today we're joined by Sinead, EHS Regional Manager at PJ Hegarty. She's focused on improving safety and reducing risk through digital innovation. Hi Sinead, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And then we also have Niamh Lorden from FlowForma. She's head of marketing here. She's very passionate about empowering teams to embrace automation and drive change. Thanks so much, Niamh, for joining us today.
Thanks, Hannah, and thanks so much to Sinead for giving up her time. I know our community love the real customer stories, so thanks so much, Sinead.
So I am going to pass you over to Niamh, and I'll be popping in and out for polls throughout the webinar. But if you need any assistance, feel free to message in the chat if you have any issues. Yeah, thanks so much,
Great.
guys.
Thanks, Hannah. Okay, I guess before we jump into the interview with Sinead, which is our spotlight today, there's just a few little pieces I'd like to cover off with our attendees. I know we've a mix of people on the call today, Sinead, so some people are in the FlowForma community and other attendees are new and looking at our platform maybe for the first time. So welcome everyone. I won't talk about this too much because we'll get into the case study soon, but for anyone new to our community, at a high level, FlowForma is a leading process automation tool. It's been in operation for over 12 years. We're first to market with a no-code process automation tool, and since day one, we've been all about empowering the business leaders plus IT to digitalize at speed. As you can see from the visual on the right there, with our platform, it's all in one. So you're getting your forms, your workflow, your document generation, and more importantly, all your reports and insights in one place. And of course, over the last couple of years, our product has been revolutionized with an AI layer. So as part of our AI module now, our users are utilizing the FlowForma Copilot to accelerate the speed at which you can digitalize processes, plus using AI agents and assistants to help with execution. So that's just a little bit of background to the platform, which I think will help people kind of understand, Sinead, before we get into the case study, what the platform actually does. So we've had great interest in today's webinar, and I think we might just kind of ground ourselves in why we're here today, why we're hosting this event. And Sinead, this might be kind of the situation that Hegarty were in before this automation initiative. But I guess what we hear on the ground a lot when we're at events or from people who are coming onto our website, downloading information, asking for support, I guess, there's definitely some common trends coming out of the conversations that our team are having with construction EHS or even the wider EHS environments. Things that we hear a lot in terms of challenges are the inefficiencies that companies face still with unstandardized workflows, fragmented workflows, fragmented systems. So I think there's still a big challenge there for organizations, and sometimes that's even compounded more with poor audit trails or a lack of kind of data and visibility. So that's kind of what we're kind of hearing on the ground. Is that something, Sinead, that, when you're at industry events or chatting to peers, there's still challenges in those areas?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for safety people is that, especially construction, all the construction projects are remote, whether it's one or a couple or 12 or it just depends, but they're all remote. You're working remote, and just it's hard to maintain consistency. But when you've remote information and you've no automated process, the time and getting that back, or putting that into any sort of standardized view for management to review how they're doing or how they're performing, there's a delay or a lag there. So it's definitely a challenge. It's also a challenge on resources, and staffing resources. Safety is all about visibility on the ground. So, and it's a heavy administrative role as well. So
Sure.
striking the balance between being on the ground, being visible, being interacting with the workers and the staff, and then, making sure that you're hitting all your administrative targets and stuff you have to do, to make sure that you're legally compliant as well.
Hmm.
So it is a big challenge. And
Of course.
unfortunately, the industry at the minute is struggling for resources.
Yeah, and on top of that, it sounds like um, construction projects are getting more complex, and then claims risk is also, another kind of increasing risk as
Yeah,
well as
and
these
there's
system
also
challenges.
stakeholder demands, client demands there as well. Um, you know, Clients are getting more demanding about what they
Of
want from
course.
safety standards
Yeah. Yeah.
as well as the industry, and also there's the competitive market as well. You need to be competitive, you need to have an edge, you need to be able to demonstrate safety excellence. So there's all of that as well that goes with it.
A lot to manage. Okay, thanks for that, Sinead. So yeah, this slide was just to kind of summarize what we're hearing from prospects and people in this space. And I guess what we'd love to do now is we'd love to kind of move into a poll. And for our attendees today, we would just love to know, what is your biggest EHS challenge right now? And Hannah's gonna launch our poll, and if you could vote on what challenges you're facing, um, that would be brilliant, so we can get some insights and align our content as closely to your challenges today. That would be great. Okay, so there's still some voting at play, so we'll give it a few more seconds to come in. And Sinead, you're probably seeing the same results as me on screen at the moment. It seems like, yeah, this is surprising. Yeah, so number one biggest challenge right now here we're seeing in the poll is managing paperwork, inspections and audits is the key challenge of people on the call. Um, that's actually, it's going up and it's increasing in popularity. Any comments on that, Sinead?
Yeah, that's like, again, safety. There's a huge volume of paperwork involved in safety, and I think sometimes it's people don't realize what's involved, but like, because everything relating to safety is usually illegal compliance
Hmm.
or a legal entity, or making sure that you're regulatory in terms of compliance. You have to document everything just for that purpose. So paperwork is massive in safety, and it's underestimated. And that level of administrative and keeping up to it, and keeping, each week, keeping, on top of your administrative duties there, it's a challenge. And then to be visible, because, to change safety and to change culture, it's all about engagement and interacting and coaching people and mentoring people.
Hmm.
And, that element is really key, and it doesn't work. So the two have to work hand in hand. But paperwork and managing that's where the automated processes and AI and digitalization, that's where all that helps
Yeah, can make
free
a
up that
massive help.
time. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Thanks for that poll, and thank you for the feedback and interaction there. Um, okay, so I guess Sinead, you're going to be able to help, definitely talking about how Hegarty overcame that challenge. Um, Okay, so yeah, without further ado, let's kind of jump into our customer spotlight with Sinead. So Sinead, to start with, can you share a little bit about PJ Hegarty as a company and what your role involves?
Yeah, so we just celebrated our centenary last year, so the business is 100 years old. We're based in Ireland. Majority of our work is based in Ireland. We have some operations in the UK as well. We have, two EHS managers, myself, and there's a Southern region one. So I look after everything sort of that comes out of the Eastern region. So I've been in my role now for 8 years with PJ Hegarty's.
Okay.
They're a tier one construction company in Ireland, and we deal with, complex civils projects, commercial offices, retail, fit out, pharmaceutical, sort of high tech buildings as well. We do refurb as well, and we do old buildings. We're involved in some demolition as well. So, there's a broad spectrum of what we're involved in the Irish market.
Okay, and Sinead, can you tell us a little bit about your role and your team and how many people are in the EHS department?
Yeah, so in the EHS department in Ireland, we've about 35 EHS. There's about 19 in the Eastern region that I look after. And they're split across about 12 main projects. So it's a busy department. We'd like to think ourselves that we're leaders for safety in the industry, and that we're, carving out a road there, I suppose, for safety. Although we must maintain the minimum is the legal compliance requirement, we do like to, step above that
Sure.
to try increase and improve standards and upskill in areas where we can and be innovative in safety as much as we can as well.
Love it. Okay. Well, let's jump on to your timeline, Sinead. I think it's a great slide that you have illustrated here. A brilliant timeline, of this journey that you've been on with FlowForma or evaluating FlowForma, to then kind of going live with a trial and then launching and then ultimately scaling automation across EHS and getting some amazing results and outcomes, which we'll get to. But can you bring us back to 21, Sinead, and what drove Hegarty's to look at automation in terms of the safety behavior observations?
Yeah, so I suppose we have a process called SBO, which is our Safety Behavioural Observation Programme,
Yeah.
and we designed it ourselves. It was our own, it was designed back in 2015, 2016. So it was the process flow and how that worked, it was paper based, but, and then everything was put in manually onto Excel. We were using macros in the background on Excel, but Microsoft was getting stricter and it was starting to shut down. So we knew we needed an automated or a digital solution to the program. So it was probably our most complicated process that we plucked out of everything
Okay.
to go sort of fact seeking or mission finding for a solution that worked, and we explored an awful lot of options,
Okay.
but we came across FlowForma. It was some of our management and our BIM manager was at a
Hmm.
convention, came across FlowForma and what they could do, and the fact that you could build your own process around what you already have and you don't have to change your process. We didn't want to change it. We looked at other options and it was changing it. It was making it lesser than what it was, and we didn't want to do that because we
Okay.
spent so much time getting it right. So in that, we did, it was a trial. Well, give us like see does it work.
Hmm.
So we did a test, or to see would the actual process work with it. It was a very quick one. It was done online with some
Okay.
builders,
Hmm.
over a period of a day or two, to show us how we could take our process and digitize it and make it very easy for us to do
Hmm.
and still own it. And that was successful. So on the back of that, we looked then at doing a trial, and building the form was the easy part, but it was just like where you want the information to go, what stats you want to pull out of it, what that would look like, building our own dashboard around it. So it was all of that as well. So we ran the tests, built it, then it went to trial. So we trialed it on one site for over 6 months.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was hugely successful. So that was done over a period from June to December. So by November, December, we knew what we wanted. This is something we wanted to go with, and we wanted to spread it out company wide. So, straight away after the trial, it increased the volume of observations coming in, improved on quality of the observations coming in, quicker response time, trends as well. Very much our trends, because they're Excel based, it wasn't universal. It was very much siloed to each project. So it's very just delayed the information. So launching this across the entire business gave us, visibility. We could slice and dice the information any way we wanted. We could look at it, country based, we could look at it regional based, we could look at it site based, we could look at, it over a month, over 6 months, over 2 weeks. So it was great in that sense that we have flexibility to design it whatever way we want. And then just, I suppose, after the launch, you can see just between 2021 and last year, we increased our observations by 45% just by digitizing the process.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then I, as a manager, have greater visibility of what's going on all, no matter what site or region, to see if there's any developing trends. So usually projects are, looking at just their own project, where, manager and our senior directorship, they're looking at trends. We're trying to pluck out trends. We can match sites as well, across, what period they're in. If they're in a civils phase, we can marry those, and, we can select what way we want to slice and dice the information. So overall, the SBO has been successful. It started prompting, what else can we do?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the next phase then of it. So
Brilliant. Yeah, it sounds like a really substantial pilot. Like you guys took this really serious, and it sounds like you had proper success criteria and outcomes, and you were really trying to like transform and get rid of the paper and the Excel and get your hands on all that data to be able to make better decisions. So
yeah,
sounds
and
like
I think that the other thing was there's a lot of off the shelf, uh, pieces out there that you can
sure.
just plug in and play straight away. And it might seem, oh, it's time consuming, you spent a lot of time, it's over years, but we didn't. And this is where, I'm safety, I know what I want from my process,
Mm-hmm.
and I know what
Yeah.
I want, but I'm not an IT person. I'm not that side inclined. So, my IT manager, my BIM manager, they were really with me on the journey the whole way,
Brilliant. Mm-hmm.
in terms of like storage, capacity, all the stuff that you don't think about in the
Mm-hmm.
background.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you storing this information? What type of information are you going to produce? So the whole sort of housekeeping side of it. So like if you're a safety professional, I wouldn't be going into it on your own, because what's off the shelf, yes, it's great and it works, but you have to think of the reality of the process.
Mm-hmm.
We had to change our process, and I didn't want to do that. And that's the one sacrifice I wasn't going to give to make my life easier for a plug and play. I'd rather do it right and put in the work.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really great point. And I did hear Sinead, yourself, and Anthony, your IT manager, talking about that previously. And I loved that, that was really important to you in terms of adoption. Change management is a big challenge, and bringing in automation and having these processes and forms on tablets and mobile is a big change. So you don't want to change the process too. That's a lot of change for users to go through. So congrats on that. I think that's really good. um, Brilliant. Okay, so I guess Sinead, if we pop on to your next visual, can you talk our attendees through then, I guess what else you have digitalized, and like your visuals here are amazing in terms of like the volume. So I'd love you to share, your automation journey and success and growth over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so we've other, systems in place, project management tools that are in place. So realistically, we did get our EHS team together, and we just had a feedback session. What are your bugbears? What's time consuming? What's giving you the most pain, that's keeping you to your desk and not getting you out of sight. So we had a feedback session, and they just literally bared their souls to us. So we kind of went with the priority, the fact that SBO works. We found something that works for our SBO. Anything else can be done after that. So we went on a priority list of what was the most time consuming
Okay.
items in terms of resources being used on site administrative wise, and it was plant management, permits. Permits were paper based. There were tick box exercise.
Hmm.
Um, Again, there's loads of off the shelf, things you can get out there that are available, that are plug and play, and if they work for a company, that's fine. Again, we had very specific rules around some of our permits. And we didn't like the idea that we would have had to change them. Now, other companies offered, like, we can change them any way you want. Um, but we did our research, we made some phone calls, and yes, that was true, but it was time consuming and it was difficult to do that. So we didn't want any of that, and we wanted to own our information, and we wanted to own our process. So plant was our next biggest contender we needed to deal with. And the difference with the SBO was one process, one workflow with multiple steps. But it was high in terms of time and resources, consuming resources.
Hmm.
So it had a huge impact. And again, it was a leading indicator. We got so much from that, that gave us direction, and our action plans, identifying trends. So it was high impact. Our plant, it was a network. There was plant onboarding, there was different types of plant inspection, and it all had to talk to each other. So it was a complete network that we had to build around the plant element of it, and the same then followed with permits. So we have an annual sort of improvement. We've objective there annually for digitization, safety digitization, and we look at
Okay.
that every year. And we do improvements now every year. So we take it bit by bit, as opposed to just one big chunk. And if
Yeah.
that works. Now there's other stuff integrated into other processes. But again, when we looked at, when we got our IT, there was stuff there, that we looked at that was really impressive. But when we sat down with, our IT manager and our BIM manager, they said, well, what have you got integrated that's digitized already? And when you map
Hmm.
that out, so we just got a whiteboard, mapped it all out,
Yeah.
what we have, what's working. Really, we just needed a solution for the other bits.
Hmm.
So, our safety digitization is across 3 platforms. So FlowForma takes care of the plant, the SBO, the permits, and the vehicles. And there's other areas there we want to look at next year, but um, that's what we decided. They're the things FlowForma would work really well for, and we built those out.
Yeah, and you've
So
done a
that's kind of,
great job, Sinead. And I can see, I know you said on the visual there, you're actually up to like 16,000
yeah.
forms.
So I know. So that was January. So it's
Mm,
averaging 14,000. We're now averaging 16,000 forms, individual forms being completed every month now.
yeah, that's a lot of data collection and lots of
It's
great
a lot of
outcomes as a
forms. Yeah.
result of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Uh,
the biggest thing, I suppose, out of that is the compliance. Plant, when it's paper based, our compliance, you can say our compliance is really good, but realistically, when you've supervisors, talking about the pain of
mhm.
permits, I was like, you're only feeling the pain because you're actually having to do your job. Because before it was just like a tick box exercise for them. Whereas
Okay.
now it's on their phone, they're out on site, they're visible, the permit comes through their phone, they can go to the place of work there and then. Do you know what I mean? So it was real, like in the office in the morning, sign all the permits out on site. Whereas now it's very dynamic, in the sense that it's on my phone, it comes through, I get a notification, I know where the location is, it's only around the corner, they'll check
Mhm.
the work area. So in terms of safety and safety compliance and standards, it's actually up the level of compliance and standard,
Amazing.
which is good.
Great. That's what you're trying to achieve. Brilliant. Okay. And Sinead, I remember you talking before about like adoption and change. And if we move on to your next slide, I do love what you've done around the QR codes. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I suppose you get so many licenses, you buy whatever you need, but if you're a big operation and you're across multiple sites and multiple contractors, it's very difficult when you issue a license to a contractor and they use a license, but you don't know if they're on site or not, or how much usability
Hmm.
they have with it, or things like that. So we just there's a public link QR code which makes it really accessible for everybody coming through your sites, being on your sites without having to manage licenses and who has a license and who doesn't, and is it used and is it not, and we have to buy more. So all of that, which is a cost element as well. But we just found with QR codes, it's accessible to absolutely everybody at any time. All you need is a phone. And then once we set up, we've it set up in the background, we've a structure in the background with lists, with
Hmm.
approval lists. So once they select the site, we have our own approval lists we keep maintenance on. So once they just apply for the permit and whatever site it is, it'll go straight through to the people it needs to go to. So we have boards up and posters and things like that, and there's links we send out. When we've awarded a contractor, we'll send out a pack. They've all the links, so if they've got people sitting at desks, they can use the links there as well. So that's kind of the way we do it. And then our own staff and anyone who has a license has all the forms accessible through the app as well.
Yeah, I love it. It's so practical. It's just a simple idea, but it's helped you guys get that adoption and buy-in because you've made it so easy to access what people need to get their job done. So love that. Um, okay, and then Sinead, I know it's a challenge for every organization, and data is king, and we're all trying to get our hands on as much real-time data as we can to make smarter, informed decisions. And you have some great visuals here, so you're obviously um, monitoring some really important KPIs. Do you want to kind of talk us through quickly the KPIs that you're now
Yeah,
able to measure against easier
yeah,
since onboarding?
like the form on the left. So we had our own paper-based forms, but FlowForma will produce a PDF form. That'll you set up the folder structure, it'll file to where it needs to file, and it's accessible. But what we liked is that our supervisors, when it produces a PDF, they're still seeing the same form they're familiar with, and that's what they loved. So the
Hmm.
process didn't change, and the end result was still there, which is what we wanted as well. Again, we've a lot of supervisors who are not phone friendly, and were really daunted by, oh, we're going digital, but they love it now. So I've supervisors now
Brilliant.
that absolutely love it, which is great, and it's super simple. The dashboards, we use Power BI. We build all our own dashboards out of the data we get. The fact that we own the data, we full access to the data,
Hmm.
helps. We can build a dashboard any way we want. So our SBO dashboards, like we've about 12 tabs across the bottom of
Wow.
data, and we break it down every way we want. We've broken down data, a client, if there's a client, we can build a dashboard specifically for a client for a project on
Great.
the indicators they want. So some clients are very specific on the information they want and how it's given. So we'll build a dashboard. We have all the data, so we'll build a dashboard for the client that's there for our project management team to report out, so they're not going, chasing figures and switching it around to different formats. So it's really helpful in that sense as well. And then it's great because when people have ideas, so we've categorized, I suppose, for example, our SBO data, it was general observations, but then it was like there's high, medium, and low risk, and we was like,
Okay.
oh, we'll add that in. Let's break it down, because high risk stuff, although you get a couple of observations, it's the potential is far greater. So just things like that you improve as you go along. And now we can categorize it that way, and we can look at our information that way, so it further brings it down. So it's great. You can look at correlations between data with contractors, and it's just you can correlate it any way you want, and the relationship between data at different points in time and different types, instead of just, and I say it's on the surface data, but a lot of off the shelf is on the surface data, which is great, but we want a flexibility to slice and dice it any way we want, and owning our own data and building our own dashboards does that.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I guess you can collect whatever data you want in the forms, and it's, validated in whatever way you want, and then you've
Yeah.
all the data available for whatever new KPIs or measurements you need to track on. So
yeah, and
that's
we've
a great
there's
story.
quality control in how we've done it as well, and you build that into your process. So for our SBO, anyone who raises a safety observation, it has to be vetted by an EHS person, and they assign the
Okay.
category. So they'll just get it on their phone and they'll vet it, they'll read the observation, they'll assign a category that's appropriate to the observation. So it's not on the worker to identify what that is. The safety professional identifies where that goes. So we're not creating false trends or false stats. And if there's a lack of information, or we feel like a valid conversation wasn't had, we have a pass back that's been recently introduced. We'll
Okay.
pass it back to them and we'll say, you're not giving us enough information. We don't feel like an interaction happened here. Or, it'll either be rejected when they come back again, or it'll go through the next time. So now we're just, that quality aspect is really important. So if you're building a process, it's build the quality into what you're putting, what you want in your information into the process.
Definitely. You're going to have all your accurate data for the KPI tracking that way. That's brilliant, Sinead. And you've digitalized a lot here, Sinead, and I know you mentioned a couple of minutes ago that there's some other areas of work on your agenda. Would you mind sharing what your next steps are in terms of looking
Yeah,
into this?
so I suppose our next bugbear is the audits. So,
Okay.
again, going with the priority level of resources required and the impact. So we're in the process now of looking at all our audits. We're reviewing our audit questions. We're reviewing our audit scoring. So all
Okay.
of that. So again, other processes that are there, it's very much, it's either in place or it's not. We want very much a scoring rating based on, the level of compliance we think they're at. So, that's the next sort of big project for next year that we're working on already.
Okay. Amazing. Thanks so much, Sinead, for sharing your story. And I know we have a 40-minute-ish webinar today, so we're trying to keep it nice and concise for people. So I would encourage, if anyone has any questions, if you haven't put them in the chat for Sinead, please pop them in now, and then Sinead will put some of those questions to you at the FAQ in a couple of minutes. Thank you for all that information, for being so open with the audience. We really appreciate that. Okay, so, oh yeah, time for another poll. So yeah, we'd love feedback on where the attendees are currently at in terms of managing their EHS processes today. So are you using mixed tools, like a mixture of email, Excel, some systems? Have you not standardized across sites? Are you partly digital, fully digital, or fully digital looking to optimize on AI, which I know is a major next step for all organizations? Okay, so feedback so far is people are saying partly digital. And I guess that's, we hear that across the board, Sinead. And I remember we had a customer from Beaumont Hospital speak on a webinar for us recently, and they said, it's a mountain of automation. You're on a journey. It's never always going to be done. And I think what you guys are doing is like really encouraging. You're following where the pain is and focusing on those areas as you go, and scaling that way, which is
Yeah.
great. Okay, so we'll move on from the poll. So what I wanted to do next is, so Sinead, you've obviously kind of shared your story and journey and the outcomes that you achieved, and I just wanted to bring up this quick slide for attendees, just in terms of FlowForma as a platform. As Sinead explained, like this is an area where your people, your subcontractors, your processes, and if you do want to use AI agents, they're all working together, and you can have all your stakeholders, your SLT team, your employees, your suppliers, all working in the one platform to achieve the automated processes, those beautiful reports like Sinead showed us, and your auto-generated documents like that one you shared, Sinead. And I guess, generating documents is made much easier with FlowForma, with your template, and you're pulling in all that data that is getting captured in the field. So this is just a summary in terms of thinking about automation, building it, and how you would run it in the platform. Okay, and then I guess just to let everyone know that should you be looking at FlowForma for next steps in terms of automation, we do have a EHS accelerator pack which comes with kind of the regular most common processes that people would digitize with the system. And Sinead, those screenshots there are just reminding me, when we do a lot of kind of in-person events, people get very excited about, taking pictures in the field and doing the annotation on the picture, and all of that is something that excites people a lot. Okay, so that's our EHS Accelerator pack, and I think, Sinead, this kind of aligns with your story as well. You know, we would definitely recommend that organizations follow the pain, and you can scale automation across your organization using FlowForma across different areas. So obviously, Sinead has covered EHS today, but our product is used kind of for an A to Z of processes across the construction site. Okay, and then what I do want to do just before we move into Q&A, so thanks, Sinead, for sharing your stats, and I just wanted to bring up another couple of customers that have achieved some great return on investment from automating on the FlowForma platform. There's one there I love from Jimmy in Rimkus, and their construction company was scaling and growth, and by onboarding FlowForma, Jimmy told us their organization was able to take on twice the amount of deliverables, and some lovely stats there from Downer Construction in New Zealand. So like lovely stats around, within 18 months, that's the amount of hours they were saving across different processes from finance to permit to dig. So you can get ROI pretty quickly with the platform. Okay, so I guess for those on the call today, if you're interested in a next step, I guess like what Sinead did when she was evaluating FlowForma, you can let us know now or later in the survey if you'd be interested in a proof of concept or a demo. And I guess with the proof of concept, it's very like, I guess the starting point of probably the journey you went on, Sinead, but what we're offering today, I guess outside of a pilot, would be, you can come on a proof of concept with us, give us a couple of your processes which have pain associated with them. Our team will build them out in the FlowForma platform, and then you can take them back and test them in the field. So let us know if you would like any of those options. Okay, and then I think we're ready to move into our Q&A. So if people have questions for Sinead or myself, please let us know, and Hannah will ask your question if you pop it in the chat.
Yeah, so I can see we already have a few ones in already. We might not get time to answer all of them because we are coming up to nearly the 40-minute mark, but we'll try and get as much as we can in now. If not, we'll get back to you after, so still keep popping them in. But let's see the first one. So we have someone saying EHS is constantly changing. Sinead, how flexible are your automations for changing regulations and processes?
It's really easy. We have full access to change whatever we want, whenever we want and how we want. Simple things like we've had clients, so client-specific projects, utilities or, facilities if we're working in that would have specific rules. We can build that into the permit. So once, if they put a permit in for that project, automatically those questions for that project come up. So things like that. And then if we had, things like if we had an incident or a near miss and there's something we changed a process or added a process, we can add and change that as we see fit as well. So it's really flexible in that sense. And that's what I loved. And looking at off the shelf stuff, we want that flexibility because we're always improving our processes.
Mm-hmm.
So some off the shelves, claimed they could do that, but when you went and researched it and you asked people who had the questions, it wasn't as simple as that. So we liked it for that purpose as well.
Yeah, great
Great.
stuff. And we have another question in here as well, probably for Sinead as well. Can different sites have variations of the same process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, just when we, for example, permits, we have a riser O permit there, and it's the one permit, but if they hit click riser, a whole completely different set of questions will come up. If they click OPES, a completely different set of questions. So you've got these hide show questions based on what they're clicking through the permit, which is great. But just we've developed clash lists. So we have, so for example, working in risers and stuff, because they're layered differently. We've clash lists we developed out of that. So for project managers, before they approve a permit, they can just go into the clash list and look what's on the clash list. Other things we've done that's different to different projects. Different projects have, you could have a building that's 10 stories high, so we've put in locations, so we have manually they put in the location, but they wanted the locations in it because they wanted it in the subject heading, because we had area owners and they're like, I only care about permits on the 6th floor. So things like that. So we were able to change that around with different sites. So if they select a site and they hit location, all the locations come up based on their site, and we manage that list. So that's a list we have access to, and we can continuously manage that as well. So, and we can vary that to different sites as well with the one permit.
Yeah, great stuff. And maybe a question for Neve, because it's more based around FlowForma as well. So how does FlowForma integrate with tools construction companies already use?
Yeah, great question. I think integrations is one of the first things people ask us about when they're evaluating. So yeah, we have out of the box connectors for all the main ERP, Dynamics, Procore, all the big systems that organizations would use. So we can plug and play from all those systems together.
Great. And how do you ensure the data being submitted is accurate? I say that one's probably for Sinead.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier on, you just have to build quality into your process. What information do you want out of it? And again, like the SBO is a classic example of vetting. We have a vetting process where it has to be checked before it continues on its end journey to where the data goes. And it's just literally a simple check. Yeah, assign a category and then off it goes. And once it does that, we've built in the quality to it. Certain processes have vetting steps where needed. Now we try to avoid that as much as possible because we're trying to reduce admin, but it's a simple scan and select category and go. So it's like literally less than 2 seconds when we timed it. But for our SBOs, that is one that has to be vetted. We want good quality information, and that's why we also introduced the pass back as well. So we had a lot of they weren't vetting it or passing it through because it wasn't good enough, but it was sitting as blank in the system. So we said we've a lot of blanks here, we need to pass these back. And so in doing that, it's actually driven up the expectation on the standard that we expect coming in initially.
Great.
Fantastic.
And I know we are slightly over time, but if we have two maybe more questions, and we'll let everyone go. But there's another question here, and it's asking Sinead, how has this automation initiative improved audit readiness?
So from a plant and permit point of view, hugely, our compliance, we thought we were compliant, it's driven it up, hugely in terms of compliance around our plant. We have dashboards, so straight away I'm checking in. I don't need to be visiting the site or auditing. I know when I'm going to a site what conditions it's in before I even get there, with our dashboards. And you're not off board, and I'll make a phone call. You've quite a bit of stuff that's expired there. Is that on-site, off-site? What is it? Like if it's not on-site, get it off. Keep your dashboards clean, tidy. it keeps that compliance level up. It's great for them because they have full visibility on their projects, where it's not like an Excel spreadsheet or, paperwork and which is time consuming and cumbersome. So this gives them an overall broad view snapshot of the site. And what we've done is we have a separate dashboard for defects. So, typically on an inspection, if there was a defect on a machine, you'd have to look at it and note it and check it. Whereas now it's automated, all the defects go to a defects list. So they'll check in every other day on plant items, and they'll be ringing, our plant manager, or they'll be contacting the contractor on defects that are showing up. So you don't have these defects that are on equipment that's not getting resolved.
That's brilliant.
And we'll just take this one last question. Any other ones we will have to get back to. Does the platform work on mobile devices and tablets on site? Maybe Niamh, you could take that one.
Yeah, of course. So we've a mobile app that our customers can access from their mobiles and tablets. Yeah, and as Sinead said, you can have your QR codes up in, the factories or data centers or wherever it is that you are, so that employees and subcontractors can access flows really quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all we are able to answer right now. Anyone else we will get back to. But just to let everyone know, you can avail of your next steps via the survey post-webinar if you didn't get to vote in the poll earlier on. So you do have an option to schedule a tailored demo or book a free POC with our team. But thank you so much for joining us, Niamh and Sinead, of course, as well. If anyone has any questions at all, we're happy to help, so reach out at any time. But thanks again for coming today.
Yeah, thanks, Sinead. Thanks for being so open and giving of all your information, and you guys are doing a brilliant job. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.